The world thought it knew the story of Princess Diana. Fairy tale romance, tragic betrayal, untimely death. But what if the ending we all accepted was just the beginning of a much darker truth? What if Diana herself knew her days were numbered and left behind a breadcrumb trail of secrets, waiting for the right moment, the right person to expose the rot at the heart of the House of Windsor? That moment arrived not in some dusty archive, but in the cold, sterile atmosphere of Westminster Crown Court. Almost 3 decades after her death. The revelation? A letter penned by Diana just 3 days before the Paris crash, a letter containing a chilling premonition. If anything happens to me, look back to the palace. Imagine the scene. The hushed courtroom, every head turned, every breath held, the crimson robes of the judges, the sea of anxious faces in the public gallery. And then Prince William, no longer just the dutiful heir but a son on a mission, his face a mask of grief and determination. In his hand, the time-worn yellow envelope, the inscription D. Spencer, a stark reminder of the woman whose ghost haunted the room. The letter itself was a bombshell, but it was only the opening salvo. Diana, it turns out, had been meticulously documenting her fears, her suspicions, even naming names in a secret recording. A recording that would soon send shockwaves through the monarchy and thrust one figure in particular into the spotlight. Camilla, the woman who had weathered decades of public scorn, the woman who had finally ascended to the throne as queen consort. There she sat, in the front row beside Charles, her composure a carefully constructed facade. But as William read Diana's words aloud, as the courtroom erupted in a frenzy of disbelief and outrage, that facade began to crumble. A flicker of panic in her eyes, a tremor in her hands. The mask was slipping. For William, this wasn't just about uncovering a conspiracy. It was about confronting the demons that had haunted his entire life. The whispered warnings from his mother, the late-night tears, the sense of unease that permeated his childhood within the gilded cage of Kensington Palace. He had dismissed them once, but now, with the evidence mounting, he understood the truth. Diana had been living in fear, targeted by forces within the very institution she represented. The question now wasn't just who was responsible for Diana's death, but who had silenced her in life, who had benefited from her demise, and what was Camilla's role in it all? Was she a mere bystander, a reluctant accomplice, or something far more sinister? The stakes couldn't be higher. The monarchy itself was on trial. The carefully cultivated image of royal invincibility, of centuries of tradition and unwavering duty, was about to be shattered. And at the center of it all, Prince William forced to choose between loyalty to his family and justice for his mother, a choice that would redefine the future of the crown. But before we delve deeper into the courtroom drama, before we dissect the evidence and expose the hidden agendas, let's rewind a bit. Let's revisit the Diana we all thought we knew and examine the events leading up to that fateful day in Paris. Because to understand the truth, we have to understand the woman, her fears, and the powerful enemies she made along the way. The fairy tale was always a lie. The truth is far more complex and far more dangerous. August 28th, 1997. 3 days, 72 hours. That's all that separated Princess Diana from destiny. But in those final moments, she wasn't just a princess. She was a mother, a woman fighting for her life, and a truth teller determined to expose the darkness she saw closing it. The image the world had of Diana was carefully curated. The shy bride, the glamorous fashion icon, the compassionate humanitarian. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Her marriage to Charles was a sham, a loveless arrangement dictated by duty and tradition. Camilla loomed, a constant reminder of the betrayal, the other woman who held Charles's heart, but Diana was no victim. She was a fighter. She used her platform to champion causes that mattered, from AIDS awareness to landmine removal, challenging the establishment and winning the hearts of the people. But with every act of defiance, she made enemies within the palace walls. Her divorce from Charles in 1996 was supposed to be a new beginning, a chance for her to finally live life on her own terms. But it also made her vulnerable. Stripped of her royal security, she became an easier target. And that's when the whispers started, the subtle threats, the unsettling feeling that she was being watched. Enter Edward Marsh, a loyal member of her security detail. A man who swore to protect her with his life. He noticed the changes, the subtle alterations to her security protocol, the unexplained staff adjustments. He voiced his concerns, but his warnings were ignored. He was silenced, sidelined, replaced by someone more compliant. Then came the trip to Paris, a last-minute decision, a romantic getaway with Dodi Fayed. Or was it? Marsh testified that the Paris trip was no accident, it was arranged. The convoy was reduced, the secure radio frequency altered, the route changed at the last minute, forcing the car through the Alma tunnel. Diana knew something was wrong. The night before the crash, she confided in Marsh, her voice low, her eyes like ice. "Edward, if one day they call it an accident, don't believe it. Let the world know I saw it coming." Those words, spoken in fear and desperation, would become her final testament. And then the recording. Diana's voice, clear and haunting, echoing through the courtroom. "If I die suddenly, let this voice be heard. My security is being altered without reason. Someone wants the word accident to cover their crime. I know who they are, and they are inside the palace." The pieces were falling into place. The letter, the testimony, the recording. Diana had foreseen her own demise, and she had left behind a roadmap for those who dared to seek the truth. But who were the they she spoke of? Who were the enemies within the palace walls who wanted her silenced? The spotlight turned to Camilla. She had been present at private meetings, she was aware of the security changes, and yet she had remained silent. Why? Was she protecting the crown, or was she protecting herself? Was she a pawn in a larger game, or was she a key player? William's question hung in the air, a thunderbolt aimed directly at Camilla's carefully constructed facade. "No one would believe me. Not then. Not now." Her voice was weak, faltering, betraying the years of carefully guarded secrets. But William wasn't buying it. "No one would believe you, or did you choose to bury the truth with my mother?" His words were sharp, unforgiving. The courtroom held its breath, waiting for her response. The monarchy teetered on the brink. The truth was about to be revealed. "I had no choice." Those words, barely a whisper, hung in the air like a shroud. Choice? In the gilded cage of the monarchy, was there ever truly a choice? Or were they all just puppets, dancing to a tune orchestrated by centuries of tradition and power? William pressed. "The palace destroyed or your mask torn away? My mother paid with her life for daring to confront the truth. And you? What price did you pay for choosing silence?" Camilla's silence was deafening. Her eyes darted to Charles, a silent plea for rescue, but he remained a statue, head bowed, lost in the labyrinth of his own regrets. He wouldn't, or couldn't, save her. That silence spoke volumes. It was an admission, a confession etched on her face for all the world to see. William turned to the judges, his voice ringing with righteous anger. "You've heard her. She knew. She was there when the plans were made that led to my mother's death, and she stayed silent. That is not innocence. That is complicity." The courtroom erupted. The carefully constructed facade of royal decorum shattered, replaced by raw emotion. Gasps, sobs, whispers that turned into shouts. The dam had finally broken. But even amidst the chaos, one thing was clear. The game had changed. The rules, dictated by centuries of tradition and deference, no longer applied. Diana's ghost had finally broken free, and she was demanding justice. The gavel struck, a futile attempt to restore order. The chief judge, his face grim, announced a recess, but the storm wouldn't be contained. It had spilled out of the courtroom, into the streets, and across the world. As William left the chamber, his eyes met Camilla's one last time. He saw it then, the fear, the desperation, but also something else. A flicker of defiance. The mask was fracturing, but it hadn't completely shattered. Not yet. Outside, the chant grew louder, more insistent. Justice for Diana! It was a promise, a vow, a demand that wouldn't be silenced. The truth had been unleashed, and there was no turning back. That night, the world waited. Would the monarchy crumble? Would Charles abdicate? Would Camilla be charged with conspiracy? The question swirled, unanswered, fueling speculation and uncertainty. But one thing was certain, the House of Windsor would never be the same. Diana's legacy had been cemented not just as a princess, but as a truth-teller, a rebel, a force that even death couldn't contain. And William, the dutiful son, had become her champion, willing to risk everything to expose the darkness she had fought so bravely against. The battle had just begun. The players had been revealed. The stakes had been set. Now, it was a question of who would survive the storm and who would be swept away by the tide of truth. The gavel's echo hadn't faded before William presented another piece of evidence. Handwritten notes pulled from a confidential meeting at Clarence House dated 1997. The ink was elegant, the slant familiar. Each line ended with a signature, a flourish of quiet deliberation. He read aloud, his voice a hammer striking stone. Change the route, remove excess guards, ensure the accident is convincing. One letter followed, C. A chilling stillness descended. One initial, but it was enough. Every eye locked on Camilla. Her face, drained of all color, betrayed her. Her fingers clawed at the armrest. She opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. The past choked her. William's gaze didn't waver. This handwriting has been verified through forensic examination. It is yours, Camilla. Do you wish to offer an explanation? Silence. Then a brittle laugh, dry and fractured. It echoed too long before fading, leaving her eyes blazing, not with fear, but desperation. Explain? She repeated, her voice trembling between fury and despair. Diana wanted to destroy everything, to bring down the entire monarchy. I did what I had to do to protect it, to keep it standing. Chaos, gasps, cries, shouts as the public rose in outrage. The gavel pounded, useless against the rising tide. Charles buried his face, shielding himself. A journalist sobbed. Cameras flashed. William stood still. Grief, fury, vindication raged within him. For years, he carried the ghost of betrayal. Now, the truth surfaced, raw and undeniable. His eyes locked on Camilla, trembling in her chair, not from weakness, but a soul cornered by its own lies. Turning to the bench, he spoke, his voice low, resonant. You have all heard it. This is no longer conjecture. This is truth. The hand behind my mother's death stands revealed before this court. Thunder broke after long silence. Outside, justice for Diana roared back to life. Cameras flashed, journalists shouted. History trembled. Camilla sat frozen, her mask shattered, her true self laid bare. Not the poised queen consort, but the architect of a tragedy dragged from shadow into the light. That evening, televisions went black before a solemn announcement. Camilla Parker, B.S., would address the nation live from Buckingham Palace. Outside, thousands gathered, candles flickered, white roses lined the sidewalks. A kingdom trembled. Inside the grand hall, chandeliers burned faintly. At the center, a single chair, stark, lonely. Camilla entered in plain black silk, her face drained, dark circles rimmed her eyes. She sat, her hands trembling, the world holding its breath. People of the United Kingdom, today I must face the truth. A long pause. She swallowed, her gaze flickering. For years I chose silence. I believed I was protecting the crown, preserving something greater than myself. But that silence became complicity. It contributed to the loss of someone the world still grieves, Princess Diana. And now I must bear the consequence of that choice. She drew a slow breath. As of today, I renounce the title of Queen Consort, withdraw from all royal duties, and will live the rest of my life in solitude away from the public eye. The world stopped, millions watched. Reactions divided a world haunted by her silence. Some wept, others seethed, many stared, speechless. The press called it a day of reckoning, a trial before the world's conscience. Some praised her courage. Most saw only a confession too late. Diana wouldn't return. The monarchy, once unshakable, now stood fractured, its grandeur dimmed by truth. Outside, the crowd remained. The white roses glowed. Softly, they began to sing the hymns once carried through London at Diana's funeral. At Kensington Palace, William watched in silence. His face was pale, drawn by sleepless nights and the weight of everything gained and lost. There was no triumph, only exhaustion. Justice had been served, but it felt hollow, measured in years stolen and love unreclaimed. His mother's words echoed, "Do not let them make you silent as they made me." He had kept that promise, but the victory felt carved from sorrow. Far away, Charles sat alone in a dimly lit study, his hands trembling on an old photograph of Diana. The man who had hidden behind silence was now defined by it, his absence speaking louder than any defense. The final image was of Camilla herself, pale, trembling, walking away from the broadcast chair, vanishing behind the great oak door. The fall of an uncrowned queen, stepping down from the throne of deception, leaving behind a monarchy cracked by truth and a world that would never again see her the same way.